All right, so again, we're going to solve inequalities, but we're going to use addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So moving on to input, we have a language of the discipline word that we need to know today. So go ahead and draw your language of the discipline icon. And today the word that we are going to need to know is equivalent inequalities. Equivalent inequalities. Equivalent inequalities. What does that mean? It basically means inequalities with the same solutions. Inequalities with the same solutions. I'm going to give you an example. For example, I might have x is less than 3, and I might also have x plus 4 is less than 7. These are the same because, okay, if I solve for x on this side and subtract 4 from both sides, these are going to cancel and I'm left with x is less than 3. Are they the same? Yes, they have the same solutions. So that means these are both equivalent inequalities. Hands on your head if that makes sense. Awesome. All right, we're going to be writing a little bit because we need to know some properties, okay? So the first property is called the addition property of inequalities. Addition, I'm going to put prop for short, of inequalities. The addition property of inequalities. That basically states if A is greater than B, then A plus C is greater than B plus C. So let's think about that. If A is 2 and B is 1 and C is 3, okay, for example, let's just give it an example. So if A is 2, B is 1, that means A is 2, we'll say C is 3, it's going to make this statement true. 2 is greater than 1, therefore 2 plus 3 is still going to be greater than 1 plus 3 because A is bigger than B. Okay? Pencil in the air if you have that written down so you can change your paper. The next property is the subtraction property of inequalities. Subtraction property of inequalities. Oops. Okay, and that states the opposite. If A is greater than B, then A minus C is going to be greater than B minus C. So that's the same thing. If A is 2 and B is 1, and we call C, I don't know, 3, okay, it's going to be the same. 2 minus C is going to be greater than 1 minus C. Just the way it works. Okay. The next property is called the multiplication, so I'm just going to put mult for short, property, prop, of inequalities for when C is greater than 0. Multiplication property of inequalities when C is greater than 0. So that means if A is greater than B, then A times C is going to be greater than B times C. So if the first number is bigger than the second number, whatever you add to that, it's still going to be bigger than the second number. Or whatever you multiply to that, it's still going to be bigger than the second number. So property. Then we have the multiplication property of inequality for when C is less than 0. Now this one you have to pay attention. If A is greater than B, then AC is less than BC. So you can see right here, the sign reverses. Reverse the sign. That's important to write down. That the multiplication property of equality, when C is less than 0, you reverse the sign. Lastly, our two division properties. The division property of inequalities when C is greater than 0. The division property of equality when C is greater than 0 states if A is greater than B, then A divided by C is greater than B divided by C. It's a division property. So you can almost guess by looking at the second multiplication property what's going to happen in this last division property. This last property is the division property of inequality when C is less than 0. You're going to see a pattern here. If A is greater than B, then A divided by C is less than B divided by C. So again, you can see that the sign will reverse. So instead of being greater than, it becomes less than. The sign reverses. So you have the addition property and the subtraction property. You have two multiplication properties. If it's less than 0, then the sign changes. Two division properties. If it's less than 0, the sign changes. So I will model how to do these. You have to make sure you pay attention. So if it's less than 0 when you divide, or if it's less than 0 when you multiply, you have to switch the sign. Put your hands on your head when you're ready to move on. Awesome. All right, then modeling. Let me show you how it's done. In modeling, you're going to get the direction that states what is the solution to the inequality. Please write down the directions so that you know what the directions are going to look like on your homework. What is the solution to the inequality? Okay, so let's do A. Let's do one problem. 10 plus y is greater than 12. Please write that down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to solve it just like that was an equal sign, like we've done before in algebra. It's the same thing. You just have to watch when you need to reverse it or leave it the same. Okay? So just like algebra, I'm going to think to myself, okay, I need to get y by itself. So in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides and draw my line just like we do when we do algebra. Now my 10s, positive and negative, cancel each other out just like we do in algebra. So my y is going to be greater than 12 minus 10, which is 2. And that's my answer. Just like it was an equal sign. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try B over here. N minus 7 is greater than or equal to 2. So, I think to myself, I need to get n by itself. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides and draw my line under. Now I know negative 7 and a positive 7 cancel each other out, so I'm left with n on the left side. My sign is greater than or equal to, and 2 plus 7 is 9. That's my answer. Okay, let's try the letter C here. Okay. So, 12 plus D plus 3 is less than or equal to 10. Please write that down. 12 plus D plus 3 is less than or equal to 10. I don't see everybody writing. I don't know if you can do it telepathically or what. All right, so we have these examples. All right, well, I see that I have 2 common numbers here. So that 12 plus 3 is 15, plus D is what I have left over, is less than or equal to 10. They're like terms. So then I need to get D by itself, so I know that I need to subtract 15 from both sides, so it's a positive 15 on the other. And draw my line under. Positive 15 cancels out with negative 15, so I'm left with D on the left-hand side is less than or equal to 10 minus 15, different sign subtract, and keep the sign of the higher number, so I know it's going to be negative. 15 minus 10 is 5. So that's my answer. So far, so good? Cool, easy. Let's try letter D. I have 12 plus the letter T is less than 4 minus 15. All right, so let's see. I don't need to do anything to this side, 12 plus T for right now. But 4 minus 15, different sign subtract, so that's 11. Keep the sign of the higher number, which is negative. So I solved on the right side. Now I want to leave T by itself, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides and draw my line under. Positive 12 and a negative 12 cancel out, so I'm left with T is less than negative 11 minus 12. They're same sign, so I'm going to add, so that's 23, and I'm going to keep the sign negative. So T is less than negative 23. Letter E. Negative 7 is less than or equal to negative 11 plus the letter Z. See if you guys can figure that out, and you can see if it ends up being the same answer as mine. So I would want to get Z by itself, so I know that I need to add 11 to both sides. And draw my line. You should have gotten at least that far. Negative and positive cancel, so I'm left with Z is less than or equal to 7 plus, negative 7 plus 11. Different signs subtract and keep the sign of the higher number, so I know it's going to be a positive 4. Now I know I can't write my answer like that because I want the variable to come first. So Z, the open part is facing the Z, is greater than or equal to 4. That should be your answer. Now why does it change again? It's not, I'm just putting it in the order. If the open part is facing Z, then that's what needs to happen when I rewrite it. Another example, letter F. 75 is less than or equal to 15B. So now we're getting into the multiplication and division problems, okay? This is where we need to watch out to see if we need to switch the way that the greater than or less than sign goes. We need to see if we need to reverse. So to get B by itself, I know I'm going to divide by 15 on both sides. My 15s cancel on the left because 15 over 15 is 1, so it's like saying 1B. So B is less than or equal to 75 divided by 15 is 5. And again, I can't write it like that. I need to have the variable first. So B, the open part, is facing B. It's greater than or equal to 5. So on that one, we didn't have to. Because we didn't divide by anything that is less than 0. All right. 4 more. Letter H says negative 9n is greater than or equal to negative 36. Now I see in this that I already have a negative to divide by to get n by itself. So I want you to draw a little arrow right here and say look. And put eyes in your look. I know that to get n by itself, I'm going to have to divide by a negative, which is less than 0. So that means my sign needs to be reversed. So to get n by itself, I'm divided by negative 9, which is less than 0. So 9 and 9 cancel. I'm left with n. 36 divided by 9 is 4. But because I saw this negative sign, I'm dividing by a negative, which is less than 0, my sign had to change. So now it's going to be less than or equal to 4. So you have to pay attention to that. So if you divide by a negative, or if you multiply by a negative, you need to switch the sign. Okay? Let's try letter I. Negative 5 over 7 is greater than negative k over 14. Now I know I'm going to have to multiply by a negative because look, draw a little arrow and say look, if you have to multiply by a negative to get the variable by itself, or if you have to divide by a negative to get the variable by itself, the sign switches, it changes, reverse. Okay? So I know that I'm going to have to multiply by negative 14 to get a positive k on that side, and a negative 14 over here. Negative 14 cancel, I'm left with k. Now, negative 14 times a negative 5 divided by 7 is actually 10. But, again, because I saw that this was negative, that I multiplied by a negative, my sign changes. So my sign becomes less than. But then, can you write it like that? No, you got to put it in the order. Variable first, the open part of the mouth of the sign is towards k, 10. Two more. Thank you. Letter J, negative 4 over 5R is less than 8. is less than 8. So I know that I need to multiply by the reciprocal to get r by itself. Now, I'm multiplying by a negative. I see it. I have to multiply by something negative. So that means my sign's going to change. So I'm multiplying by the reciprocal, which is negative 5 over 4. That's what I'm going to do to get r by itself. I do the same thing to the other side. Negative 5 over 4. You flip. Multiply by its reciprocal. So 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 5 once, 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 4 once. So I'm left with r. I know my sign changes. 8 times negative 5 is 40. 40, negative 40 over 4. R is greater than negative 10. Yes, Tiffany, what the phone says. Haley Lau, you're going home? Okay. Are we backpacking on your agenda? Last one, letter K. C over 12 is greater than negative 5 over 6. Now this one you have to think. Are you going to be multiplying or dividing by anything negative to get C by itself? No, it's a positive 12. So if I multiply by positive 12 on both sides to get C by itself, right? It's like you're saying 12 over 1. 12, 12 cancel. I'm left with C. My sign does not need to change because I did not multiply or divide by a negative to get the variable by itself. It's a positive 12. So then negative 12 times 5 divided by 6 is negative 10. Go ahead, Alex. Thank you.